It's been a huge day of NHL news with the NHL making the Coyotes move to Utah official. We've also have lots of other details we've learned since the sale was announced. We also have some offseason trade talk involving the Ottawa Senators and the Seattle Kraken. Plus, we have some other updates, including a retirement, some other injury updates and signings, plus some other news from around the league. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, it's been an extremely busy day in the world of hockey, in the world of the NHL. Of course, let's kick things off with a quick recap of the biggest story that we've been covering here for some time, and that's the Arizona Coyotes being officially moving now to Salt Lake City, Utah. We've been talking about the rumors and the rumblings and what we've learned throughout the entire process over the past, what has it been, 7 days, 8 days, 10 days, whatever it's been since the news first broke from Frank Zaravalli that there was a serious possibility that this was going to happen. So the NHL and the Board of Governors had their meeting at 3 o'clock Eastern time today. They voted and everything passed unanimously for the sale of the Coyotes to go from Alex Muriel essentially to Ryan Smith Group. So this is a unique situation. It's not really a sale per se. Essentially, Ryan Smith's group is buying the hockey operations department of the Arizona Coyotes and creating a new franchise, which are going to be called the Utah something or other. We'll talk about that in a minute here. And obviously the Arizona Coyotes trademarks, logos, names, all that will remain under ownership of Alex Muriel, and he will have a 5-year timeline to get built an operational arena that's suitable for NHL hockey to reactivate the franchise and come back as an expansion team during that timeline. Of course, in the video earlier, if you want more of an in-depth analysis on everything, I do have a dedicated video on the channel from a few hours ago talking about when that news broke and like I said, a little bit more, but I just want to kind of reiterate because we've learned a bunch of stuff since then. Since that news broke and we first reported on it, new owner Ryan Smith, former Coyotes owner, I guess you could say he's still the Coyotes owner, Alex Muriel, and Gary Bettman have all done a lot of interviews, a lot of media, and we've learned a lot more stuff. So I wanted to kind of talk about some of those other details. Of course, last night was the final, emotional game at Mullet Arena for the Coyotes. Fans were obviously, wanting to embrace the last opportunity to support their team. You could see all kinds of teary-eyed people in the stands, which is heartbreaking to watch. Players did a phenomenal job, I thought, sticking around long after the game was over. I've seen reports that it was probably a good hour after the game was over. Players were still on the ice, still talking to fans, signing stuff, giving things away. Just absolutely, applause to those guys for taking the time to really, give back what they could to those longtime supporters that were there and obviously were emotional over the team not going to exist in Arizona any longer. So certainly was, like I said, a very emotional night. But we learned a lot today after the sale was made official. Of course, we do know that the team will be relocated to Salt Lake City, Utah. They will play out of the Delta Center. Right now, that arena, which was primarily built for basketball in the NBA, will seat 12,000 hockey fans. There's going to be some seats that are not going to be, that would work for basketball, that won't work for hockey, that because of the sight lines. So 12,000 is what it's going to be for NHL hockey, but it's not going to stay that way for too long. They have plans in place to over the next couple of seasons to do renovations to that arena to increase the seating capacity for NHL hockey up to 17,000, which would be a lot better. So I know we've heard a lot of talk about, well, they're going from an arena situation, which is the biggest reason why things failed in Arizona, to an arena in Salt Lake that's not even really NHL appropriate either. It's like, well, maybe not perfectly today, but it's going to, you go from 5,000 fans or a little less than that, 4,600 at Mullet, to 12,000. That's a lot more revenue for one. And then, of course, like I said, in the next over 1 to 2 years, they'll have it up to 17,000 after completing some renovations. So at the end of the day, it won't take long. And, of course, they have plans well underway to get their new arena. I'm not sure how quickly that new arena is going to be built. It wouldn't be surprising after sinking a bunch of money into the new one. It's probably going to be, I'm going to say 3 to 5 years, but there's lots of ongoing discussions with the Ryan Smith Group, with the city of Salt Lake and the state. I know they're getting a sweet deal to have a big investment from, I believe it was state government, to build the arena. I'm not sure how quickly shovels will get in the ground, but it won't be too long before, like, they're further along with their plans than the Coyotes are. We can say that. And like I said, but the renovations getting capacity up to 17,000, well, then that, it won't be long. So that's good news. We also learned that Alex Muriel, of course, like I said, has his 5-year window. He cannot sell or transfer his agreement to anybody else that he has in place to bring back to franchise. So it'll be up to him to do that. If he does not do that, then he will lose the right to bring it back, and they can basically sell it to another prospective owner who can get it done. So basically, Muriel has 5 years to bring hockey back, and if he can't do it, then they'll go elsewhere. And it's just that simple. Muriel also did reveal in one of his interviews that he did say that the Tucson Roadrunners American Hockey League team would be moving up to Mullet Arena, which is sad news for Tucson. Tucson has supported that team well. I think they've had it there for about 8 years or so, 8 to 10 years that it's been in Tucson, and it's done relatively well. I know hearing people that work at ASU and Mullet Arena before were questioning about this before when this was all made official, and they said that there was nothing that they were aware of, and people at Arizona State didn't seem too thrilled with that idea. Their agreement with Muriel was for an NHL club to play there, not an AHL club. So I don't know if he's since gone to them and they've worked something out, but I know he says that. Haven't seen anything to say that it's officially official, but that's what Muriel said. So we'll take his word for it for the time being. We also know as well that the Utah group started selling season tickets as soon as they took ownership. There was already lots of information set up, and within the first 2 hours, they had 6,000 season ticket deposits, which to me is phenomenal. And I know I've seen people online, and mainly salty people, that were losing their team, which I understand. You're upset that you're losing your Coyotes, but they're saying how much faster tickets sold in Seattle with their ticket drive. You got to remember, though, we knew well in advance that the Seattle Kraken were coming. This was no secret. They had a lot more time to prepare than the short turnaround time that things were kind of leaking out publicly about this team coming to Utah and the time it closed. Like, they've had no time. So the fact that they can do 6,000 in a couple hours, and they'll probably be, I would think, probably be at 8 to 10,000 by tomorrow or whatever, like that's pretty darn good. So I have no doubt that they will do very well with their ticket sales and be successful in that standpoint here. Lots of questions around what the team name is going to be called. Ryan Smith did confirm it's not going to be the Salt Lake whatevers. It's going to be the Utah is going to be the what it's going to be called. He said he's not going to rush to get the team name sorted out, but there is word that they do have a marketing firm that's been hired, which is Doubleday and Cartwright, who's got tons of experience in the sports world of professional sports, of handling branding, name, logo, etc. requests from various pro sports teams. So they're certainly in good hands in that respect. There is some people that did some digging and found that there's been applications were filed with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office for a bunch of different names, including the Utah Blizzard, the Utah Fury, and the Utah Venom. Now, it doesn't mean for sure those are going to be one of the names. I think they also trademarked the Utah Hockey Club and Utah HC. Of course, we know Ryan Smith's in the soccer world, which is they use the FC a lot. So I don't know where they're going with that. I can't see that being the actual team name, but between Blizzard, Fury, and Venom, if it's one of those, I'd probably pick Blizzard as being the best. But I've seen some people suggesting the Utah Yetis. I do like that. I've seen some logo concepts people have drawn up and shared on social media. It looks kind of cool. So we'll see. But we've learned a lot. So at the end of the day, this is now officially official. Players are supposedly heading to Utah for a tour and meetings next week. Ryan Smith did meet with the players and staff in Arizona this afternoon, right around the time that the sale became official. So he's already done more than Alex Muriel did. We know Muriel did not attend the final game last night. He said in his interview that he was not able to because they were still working away at finalizing the sale and he wasn't able to go. And I'll believe that. I don't doubt that's true. I also don't know what would have been wise for him to be in the arena, considering I don't think people in Arizona that are fans of this hockey club are overly fond of him. I mean, he's had this team for an extended time, has not been able to figure things out. There's been lots of reports about how people have been treated in that organization, and to be honest, it's not good. Like I said before in the other video, I do think hockey can thrive in Arizona, but I don't think they can thrive under his leadership and his ownership. I think it's going to have to be a different group. I don't know that he's really fit for it, and we'll see what happens. But he's got a 5-year window, and only time will tell. But I do have the, I guess the belief the hockey will be back in Arizona. Hard to say when. So if you're a Coyotes fan and you're really bummed over this, I get it. Like I said, I mean, I've seen. I live in Canada. During my lifetime, I've seen us lose Canadian teams, the Jets, the Nordiques. We've lost the Montreal Expos, which was, more recent. It sucks. It sucks hardcore. And I do believe you'll get another opportunity. But the thing that really blows is that you got a good group of young players that you've been attached to that you can see turning the corner and doing great things down the road. And after all that pain and suffering of having a team that didn't win much, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and now you won't get to reap the rewards. That's the really part that sucks for Coyotes fans. So I do understand, and I hope you can find a way to keep hockey in your life and to keep hockey relevant, and hopefully you'll have an opportunity to be cheering on your local team again in the not too distant future. But I guess that's well out of our hands, so we'll see what happens on that front. Lots of other news to talk about today. We got word that Penguins forward Jeff Carter retired. He, after last night's game, it didn't take long. You could tell before he even got off the ice. Even when the game started, Crosby let him take the opening face-off, and Crosby played on the wing. And you could see as the game went on, you could feel it. It looked like it was Carter's last hurrah here at the end of the game. Even the Islanders players that they were playing come up, shook his hand, and you could see, based on how they were going off the ice, it was pretty evident. And it wasn't long after the game last night when the Penguins' social media put out the announcement. So Jeff Carter, his contract was expiring. He's 39 years old, 19 seasons in the NHL, has 2 Stanley Cups to his name, over 1,300 games played. He's had a heck of a run, had a chance to represent his country for Canada internationally multiple times as well. He obviously played for a few teams in there, but certainly had a great run. So congratulations, Jeff Carter, on a great ride in the NHL, and obviously wishing nothing but the best for whatever comes next for him. Some other news around the league today as well. Got a signing in Vancouver. They've extended youngster Vasily Podkolzin on a 2-year deal worth $1 million per season. And the Maple Leafs have signed an interesting prospect as well. Defenseman Cade Weber gets a 2-year ELC. He's 6'7", 210 pounds. He's a monster out of Boston University. He was originally a 2019 Carolina Hurricanes pick, and he was, if you remember, we talked about him not too long ago around the NHL trade deadline. He was traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs on March 7th. So Carolina knew they likely weren't going to be able to sign him, moved him to the Leafs, and he has a contract now. So he's believed to be with the team. I don't know if we'll see him in the playoffs. I would think he'd be low enough on the depth chart that probably not, but good experience for him to be around him in the playoffs, and we'll see where things go with the big defenseman prospect. Philadelphia revealed today that Rasmus Ristolainen had to have surgery on a ruptured tricep tendon, and he's going to be needing a 3-month recovery. So obviously that's pretty big news there. The Penguins today placed young defenseman Ryan Shea on waivers. That's, of course, to send him back to the American Hockey League to continue out the rest of the season with the farm club. Obviously, this time of year, you don't really see waiver claims. Doesn't really make any sense. So he's going to clear, and he'll report to the minors tomorrow once that's made official. Now, as I mentioned, we have some other rumors around the NHL I want to take a look at. A lot of this comes, part of the Kraken news I want to talk about, the Kraken rumors, comes from an article in the Seattle Times, which, to me was kind of surprising. Now, of course, we know Seattle took a step back this year. We know Seattle is a team that exceeded expectations last year. And to me, when I recapped everything, and I'm sure I've said this on video and on the channel, Seattle was an opportunistic team that just had everything go right last year. They had so many players exceed expectations, hit career highs, shooting percentage, like all kinds of things were just in their favor. To me, they were greatly exceeding expectations. So I was not surprised to see them take a step back. Now, their step back this year was a little more significant than I did expect, though. Going into the third year, they had a taste of the playoffs. They won a round of that, upset the Avalanche. They were probably feeling pretty good about themselves, but then that's a big step back. So you go from, year one, you come in, you're not Vegas like they did, but you're certainly not the old traditional, really bad expansion teams we saw in the early 2000s either. And then, you have a year two, you take a major step forward, you hit 100 points in the season, you make the playoffs, you upset the defending champions. And then the round two, they went deep in round two as well. Like, it was not far off from going to another round. But like I said, it just was, everything fell just right for them. And things can happen. You see crazy runs all the time. And then it can lead to things kind of going back to normal, so to speak. So will there be changes? Absolutely. I do expect that. But this article suggests that the team is really in desperate need of an elite player. And if you look at this roster, they have a lot of good players. Not much there that has real star talent or what you'd call elite. Now, there's potential. Matty Beniers is still quite young, that maybe he could be an elite player. I still think that's a possibility. But he had to step back this year for sure. Is there much else on that team, though? Not really. I mean, Jared McCann's a really good player. Obviously, he's scored a lot of goals for that franchise since he's been there. But, they're a group that really needs to be, they're better than the sum of their parts, so to speak. They don't have a lot of elite talent. So I do agree with that part of the article. But it suggests to get that, when it talks about maybe being willing to trade, and I understand you need to give up value to get value, but it talks about guys like Vince Dunn and Joey Decord maybe being moved. Adam Larson, okay, I wouldn't be shocked if Larson's moved. Vince Dunn is their, they signed him to a longer-term deal. He's a pretty important piece there. Joey Decord, that's crazy. I mean, Grubauer has not been good enough for what they signed him for at all. If it wasn't for Decord, they would have been worse this year. His emergence has been phenomenal. And it even goes as far as to say that if you think Shane Wright, now after 2 seasons of being drafted, if you think he's only going to be a complimentary piece and you're not sure that he's basically a first-line player and he's going to be a complimentary piece, that you sell high on him. I was like, wow, okay. Shane Wright had a good year this year. Now, was it, a big development year in the NHL? No, it was a big development year in the AHL. His time in the NHL was very good. He actually got to play top 6 role mostly when he was there, which helped tremendously. He was a high pick. He has high ceiling still. That's risky. I guess nobody's untouchable, really, when you really boil it down. Like I said, Wayne Gretzky was traded, so anybody can be traded. But yeah, I'd be careful. And I don't see Ron Francis being the type of general manager to make huge risky moves. He's never been like that in his tenure as a manager in the NHL. So I'd be shocked if he did. Could they get really good value out of Wright? Yes, they could. I think there's lots of teams that would take the chance on him. But I don't know that you're going to win that trade. I really don't. Joey Decord, could you sell high on Joey Decord after a breakout season? You could. That'll be tricky to win as well. But at least Decord's a little bit older. Went through longer in college hockey. It was a longer project getting to the NHL. But he's still not old by any means. Could you get good value for him? Because there's lots of teams that want goaltending right now. Yeah, you really could. But then what's next for your goaltending? You solve a problem and you create another one. And if there's a top elite player out there that you'd have to give up, like, say, the Cord and Wright. Do you do that? I guess maybe, but it does not, this article does not seem to line up with the philosophies of Ron Francis. So I'd be shocked if we see any of these things, but at the same time, I'm just shocked that, still in the early infancy of this franchise, that some of the reporters are suggesting such drastic change. I don't completely disagree with the premise around what they need, but it's how you get there. When you're a young franchise like that, you have to draft and develop it, because you're going to give up a fortune to trade for it, unless you get lucky enough to go into free agency. So I don't know. I mean, Shane Wright being traded for an elite player, I mean, I guess maybe, but it really boils down to what you think of him in the future. I don't know. I'm just not. I'd be very careful with that. I wouldn't rule it out. I would just suggest being very careful. And I'd be surprised if Ron Francis's philosophy is aligned with this reporter. But I'll link the article in the pinned comment if you want to have a look and let me know what you think. In the comments in Ottawa today, we learned a lot about some of the Senators players, but the name that's going to definitely get all the headlines from the Senators' end-of-season media availability is defenseman Jakob Chychrun. He's already been in the rumor mill. There's already speculation that because of the fact that he's not signed longer term yet, that he is a prime candidate to be moved. We know that they have Thomas Chabot and Jake Sanderson both signed to long-term deals, and Chychrun's another left-shot defenseman. Do you really want 3 left-shot defensemen signed for like $8 million? No, you don't. I don't think you have to pay Chychrun $8 million, to be honest. I think he's more of maybe a $7 million, maybe even slightly under that. I think that's what I would pay him, but I'm not sure what he wants. That's a different story. But, Chychrun was also brought in as a left/right shot defenseman. He shoots left, but he was, played both sides during his career. Although he is better on the left, I will say that. I've seen him play on the right, not as good as on the left. But the big thing today, though, is during the end of season media availability, he was asked, mainly because he has only 1 year left on his deal, about the future in Ottawa and, playing, kind of reference the fact of he may only be signed for 1 more year, but, do you see yourself here long term, basically? And his answer has really got everybody talking. He said, I don't know. I haven't really wrapped my head about it or really wrapped my head around it or really thought about it. We haven't had any contract discussions on an extension yet, so we'll see where it goes. And he's quite serious, which you expect. But if you look at his end of season media availability last year, because he'd only been there a short stretch after getting there at the deadline, he was all smiles. He was loving it. You could tell he was happy as to be there. And now and I don't know if maybe it's just because it was I guess you could say it was, like I said, a disappointing season in Ottawa. His name was out there a lot. Maybe it just got to him. And maybe he also knows that the fact that he's not signed long term and the fact of the position he plays, there is a possibility that he is one of the more likely players to get traded, and maybe it's weighing on him. I don't know. But you can just see a huge difference from last year's media availability at the end of the year to this year. Completely different vibe, and you kind of got Alex DeBrincat vibes off of it. So I'm certainly not convinced at all that he wants to be there. So you combine that with the rumors that the Sens need to do something anyways. It just looks like Pierre Dorian's moves that looked phenomenal at the time are all backfiring on the team. DeBrincat didn't work out. He didn't want to stay. Fine, whatever. They moved on from him, and they're going to maybe have to do the same with Chychrun. I just hope that they get a better return on Chychrun than they did on DeBrincat. So we'll see, but certainly Chychrun's comments is just going to make him that much more out there in the rumor mill. So I'd be less surprised to see him trade it now than even yesterday. So we will see where that goes. We did learn a bit more about some of his teammates as well. Timmy Stützle confirmed that he's been dealing with a shoulder and wrist injury. So it does explain why he wasn't quite himself a lot of the season. Of course, so not only losing Norris for a big chunk of the year with another major surgery needed, but he was hurt. Pinto was out half the year because of the suspension. They got to remember all that. they've still have only had their top 3 centers for a small period of time, and they had some phenomenal games and actually did very well during that small stretch. And then Pinto comes back, and it wasn't that long before Norris got hurt. It was only a small stretch of games, and you were finally starting to see a huge difference with how this team lines up. And then Norris goes down, and you already knew Timmy was dealing with something. You could tell because he wasn't quite himself. But the fact that he wasn't himself and dealing with 2 injuries all year and still put up close to a point per game, is just a little shy of it. That's still really good. So you get nothing to worry about in that sense. But you heard a lot of the other leaders in the team say all the right things, but they have to have a big summer. They need a coach that can hold them accountable. It's all about making the steps forward and maturity and learning how to play the right way, learning to win and all those things. So we'll see. Steve Staios has his work cut out for him. There's still talk that Shane Pinto is going to get extended here in probably short order, but until it's done, it's not done basically. So we'll see. But going to be a busy summer for Staios with the Sens, and he's going to have to undo a lot of what Pierre Dorion did the last couple of years before he was ultimately fired as the GM of the Senators. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.